Imagine the roar of 100,000 fans just vibrating through your very bones. You know the feeling, right? The sheer weight of a nation's hopes resting on the shoulders of a single player standing over a penalty kick. Well, welcome to this explainer. We're tracing the epic, cinematic journey of the most massive sporting event on planet Earth, the FIFA World Cup. From chaotic, honestly perilous boat rides across the Atlantic to billion-viewer global broadcasts, this is the complete history of how the beautiful game absolutely conquered the world.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just think about the number 48. That is the colossal scale of the upcoming 2026 World Cup hosted across North America. 48 national teams, representing every single corner of the globe, battling it out on the ultimate stage. It's just a staggering testament to how deeply football has woven itself into the fabric of human culture. But it begs a fascinating question, doesn't it? How on earth did a highly doubted, fragile 13-team experiment back in 1930 evolve into a global mega event that practically stops time for an entire month? Well, to understand this, we've got to rewind the clock to a time when international football was just a fractured amateur dream.
Section 1. The Birth of a Dream. The story truly begins right at the dawn of the 20th century. By 1904, football was spreading like wildfire, which prompted the founding of FIFA in Paris. And if you track the timeline, you see the momentum really building. Their visionary president, Jules Rimet, refused to limit the sport to just the amateur ranks. By 1914, FIFA was overseeing the Olympic tournament. But after Uruguay won back-to-back golds using true professionals, Vice President Henri Delaunay proclaimed in 1928 that the game absolutely needed its own stage. The vote was cast, and boom, the World Cup was born.
And this brilliantly illustrates how it all kicked off. The whole drive was to create an unashamedly professional world championship. Those French visionaries behind FIFA wanted to unite the globe, share expertise, and basically build a tournament for the absolute best players on the planet, period.
Section 2. The inaugural 1930 tournament.
So FIFA selected Uruguay to host, which rewarded their Olympic dominance and celebrated their independent century. They even offered to pay all the travel costs. But it was almost a complete disaster. Only 4 European nations bravely made the trip. Everyone else boycotted. I mean, getting to Uruguay back then meant a grueling multi-week boat journey, and European clubs flat out refused to lose their star players for 2 whole months.
But the ones who did go, they experienced an absolutely wild tournament. You literally cannot make this stuff up. We're talking about an era where referees officiated wearing formal suits. The main venue, the colossal Estadio Centenario, wasn't even finished until 5 days after the tournament had already kicked off because of heavy rains. Oh, and the Romanian team, they were literally selected by their king. It was also a super physical bruising affair. Peru's Placido Galindo actually earned the historical distinction of getting the first ever World Cup red card right in the middle of a massive brawl.
And the intensity? It reached an absolute boiling point in the final between the hosts, Uruguay, and their fierce rivals, Argentina. Listen to this chilling chant from the Argentine fans. Victory or death. It was that serious. Fans literally clashed. They even argued over which ball to use. They finally had to agree to use the Argentine ball in the first half and the Uruguayan ball in the second. But in front of over 68,000 screaming fans, Uruguay stormed back from a halftime deficit to win 4-2. Officially crowning them the very first world champions.
Section 3. Decades of Growth and Legends.
Okay, so after a forced hiatus because of World War II, the tournament returned with an absolute vengeance. Now, what's really interesting here is this number, 200,000. That was the estimated attendance packed into the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro for the 1950 World Cup. Host nation Brazil just needed a draw. Instead, Uruguay stunned that feverish home crowd with a 2-1 victory. It was a legendary national tragedy for Brazil that's forever known as the Maracanazo. But you know, from heartbreak comes absolute greatness. The World Cup quickly became the ultimate forge for immortal sporting icons. On one hand, you have 1958, where a dazzling 17-year-old kid named Pelé announced himself to the world, scoring a hat-trick in the semifinals and 2 goals in the final to win Brazil's first title. On the other hand, jump to 1986, where Argentina's Diego Maradona authored what is arguably the greatest individual tournament performance ever, completely punctuated by his breathtaking goal of the century against England. This tournament is literally where mere mortals become gods.
Let's see how this builds over time, because as the legends grew, so did the tournament itself. Driven by the massive explosion of global television broadcasts, FIFA really had to adapt. The tight 16-team format that gave us all those heroics of the 60s and 70s expanded to 24 teams in Spain in 1982. Then it grew into the iconic 32-team format in 1998. The World Cup wasn't just a tournament anymore. It was a mirror of globalization itself. Along the way, we hit some incredible and honestly kind of bizarre milestones. Did you know the actual World Cup trophy was stolen before the 1966 tournament in England? Yeah, and it was sniffed out a week later by a dog named Pickles. Then, in 1970, to bridge language barriers on the pitch, yellow and red cards were officially introduced. Jump to 1994, the USA hosted and shattered records with over 3.5 million attendees, which is a record that literally still stands today. And absolutely crucially, 1991 marked a massive step forward with the inauguration of the first FIFA Women's World Cup in China, which was won by the United States.
Section 4. The modern global spectacle.
Today, the World Cup is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. When you look back at Jules Rimet's initial drive to create a genuine world championship, it is incredibly safe to say the modern tournament has wildly exceeded those early ambitious dreams of the 1920s. It is the undisputed pinnacle of the entire sporting calendar.
But with that massive scale comes massive stakes, right? A single bad referee decision can literally alter the destiny of a nation. That's exactly why, in 2018 in Russia, we saw a fundamental change to the fabric of the game, with the dawn of the VAR era, video assistant referees. By utilizing high-tech cameras and instant replay, FIFA sought to bring absolute fairness to a game that had, for over a century, been defined by human error.
So the crucial point is that even as all this technology and logistics change, the core magic remains completely untouched. And that was beautifully illustrated by the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. It was a tournament of firsts, the first one held in the Middle East, and the first to shift to a winter schedule. But it's forever going to be remembered for its climax. A breathtaking 3-3 final shootout between France and Argentina, culminating in Lionel Messi finally achieving his ultimate triumph. It perfectly connected his modern crowning directly to the historical legacy of icons like Zidane, Ronaldo, Maradona, and Pelé.
Section 5. Technology and the future.
The World Cup never ever stops evolving, and the format is about to undergo its most radical transformation yet. Just look at this number, 104. That is the astonishing number of matches that will be played in the 2026 World Cup across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Expanding to 48 teams means more dreams and totally new opportunities for absolute unknowns to step up and shock the world. Which leaves us with this final thought. From 13 teams taking a grueling weeks-long boat ride to Uruguay to 48 nations competing across an entire continent in a 104-match marathon. As the World Cup expands beyond anything Jules Rimet could have possibly imagined, what new legends, what heartbreaking controversies, and what unforgettable moments of pure joy are going to unite the globe next? The whistle is blown, but the beautiful game's greatest chapters are still being written. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the pitch.